The Galactic Council chamber was unlike anything humanity had ever witnessed. The structure floated in the void of the star system Calith 9, suspended by energy fields that shimmered like liquid crystal. Its architecture was alien in every sense. Tall spires of iridescent metal twisted toward the void, while a translucent dome above refracted the light of 3 suns, casting prismatic patterns across the obsidian floor. Each counselor's platform hovered independently, surrounded by holographic sigils of their species, representing centuries, even millennia, of civilization. In the center of this grand chamber, a group of 3 humans, simple in attire, yet impossibly composed, stood out like a calm storm. Their ship, the Aurelius, had docked moments earlier, its sleek silver hull barely making a sound against the Council's enormous energy barriers. Inside, Captain Eric Vane adjusted the sleeve of his uniform and surveyed the room. He was average in height, with sharp hazel eyes that hinted at intelligence and an unshakable resolve. Behind him, Dr. Leora Cade, the strategic genius of the Terran delegation, examined the alien council chambers with fascination and caution, her mind already processing potential patterns and alliances. The third, Envoy Torin Finn, a diplomat with a reputation for calm persuasion, remained silent, his gaze moving across the alien delegates as if weighing every potential threat. The council's members were as diverse as the galaxy itself. To the left hovered Xylarth of the Vanir, a crystalline entity that refracted light from every angle, making it impossible to look at directly without feeling disoriented. Its voice, when it spoke, resonated simultaneously in multiple frequencies. Around it, other species ranged from gaseous beings who glimmered in the light, to 6-limbed creatures whose skin shifted color according to emotion, to massive armored sentients whose presence alone radiated authority. Murmurs of anticipation, or perhaps disbelief, spread through the chamber as the humans remained motionless, observing rather than performing any act of subservience. "Curious," whispered Torin to Leora, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "No hesitation. No fear. Most species would be on their knees, begging for our mercy by now." Leora's eyes gleamed with a mixture of pride and amusement. "They haven't met humans before. That's why this works. They expect us to behave as others do, fearful, manipulable, desperate. But humans, we do not bend so easily." The council's president, Xylarth, spoke in a voice that seemed to echo from every corner of the chamber simultaneously. "Terrans, you have traveled far to reach our council. We extend greetings and with it an offer that ensures your survival and prosperity. You may join the galactic fold and gain knowledge and power beyond your current comprehension. Or you may refuse, and the consequences will be yours alone." Eric stepped forward, his boots clicking softly against the reflective floor. The sound seemed disproportionately loud in the immense silence that followed Xylarth's proclamation. "We understand your offer," he said, his tone calm, even measured. "But humanity does not trade its freedom for comfort. We will make our own choices. Our survival, our prosperity, these are not commodities to be granted. They are earned." A wave of shocked murmurs swept through the council. Several members leaned closer, their eyes widening. No species in recorded history had outright refused a council proposal. Diplomacy, coercion, threats, promises, they had always worked. Yet here were humans, small and unarmed, standing without fear, without hesitation, seemingly impervious to intimidation. From a floating platform, Rilvax of the Zytherians, a 6-limbed humanoid with sapphire skin, hissed through his vocal processors. "Do they not comprehend the stakes? The council does not offer, it commands. They defy us at their peril." Torin inclined his head slightly, acknowledging Rilvax's words but not reacting. "We understand perfectly," he said evenly. "And that is why we cannot accept. Humanity does not bow. Humanity does not surrender to fear. It chooses its own path." Even Xylarth, ancient and unyielding, seemed momentarily unbalanced. Its crystalline form pulsed with a complex rhythm of light, the closest approximation to an alien sigh. "Your species is audacious," it said, each syllable reverberating unnaturally. "Few have ever dared to speak with such defiance. Most would cower. Most would negotiate. Why do you refuse?" Eric's gaze swept across the council. "Because survival without freedom is slavery. Prosperity without choice is meaningless. We do not exist merely to endure. We exist to determine our own destiny. If you wish to understand humans, you must understand that first. All else is irrelevant." The chamber descended into an uneasy silence. Delegates whispered to one another, exchanging signals and gestures that were indecipherable to the humans. Leora noted subtle shifts in alliances, recognizing fear and uncertainty blooming where authority had once stood unchallenged. "It's working," she murmured under her breath. "Even the council is reeling. They expected fear and they got none." Torrens' calm voice cut through the chamber again. "You may view us as weak, primitive even. But you underestimate us. Humanity has faced extinction, more than once. And each time we have adapted. Each time we have grown stronger. That is our power. And it is not for sale." The murmurs grew louder. Some delegates began to shuffle uneasily, others simply stared at the humans, trying to reconcile centuries of authority with this tiny, unarmed species refusing to comply. Xylartha's crystalline surface fractured slightly, sending shards of light across the chamber, a visual sign of agitation among the ancient entity's kind. Eric took one final step forward. "We are not here to fight. We are not here to threaten. But we will not bow. Our presence here is proof. Even in the face of overwhelming power, even in the shadow of a galaxy-spanning council, humans do not surrender. That is the first truth we offer you today." A silence deeper than space itself fell over the chamber. The council members were stunned. They had expected fear, negotiation, compromise, or at the very least, flattery. Instead, they were confronted by unyielding resolve. Across the galaxy, species whispered of the Terran's audacity, of a species that refused the council's authority, not through might, but through willpower. Eric turned back to his team, his expression calm. "We've made them listen," he said quietly. "Not through weapons, not through force, but by showing them who we are. This is only the beginning." Leora's lips curved in a small smile. "Let them watch. Let them squirm. They have never encountered humans like this." As the Terran stood at the center of the chamber, calm amidst the swirling energies and alien eyes, the Galactic Council realized, perhaps for the first time in millennia, that they faced a species they could not control. Not yet. And somewhere, deep in the shadows of the Council's grand chamber, ancient whispers began to speak of a power that could not be bargained with, a species that would change the galaxy forever: humanity. The silence that followed the Terran's bold declaration weighed heavily on the Galactic Council chamber. For millennia, the Council had been unchallenged, a body of ancient, powerful species whose edicts shaped the galaxy. Each delegation had learned quickly: compliance was survival. Negotiation was rarely a choice. Yet now, these humans stood at the center of the chamber, unarmed, unbowed, their calm audacity unsettling even the most formidable counselors. Xylarth of the Vanir floated slightly higher, its crystalline limbs refracting light in sharp, jagged patterns. "Terrans," it said, its voice a resonating echo that seemed to vibrate through the chamber itself, "you enter a domain of power you cannot begin to fathom. We are the Galactic Council. Our knowledge, our influence, our authority, these are not mere suggestions. They are law. To reject our offer is to invite catastrophe." Captain Eric Vane's hazel eyes met Xylartha's multifaceted gaze, unflinching. He did not step back, did not falter. "We understand your power," he replied, voice calm but firm. "We do not dispute your influence. But power without morality, authority without justice, these are chains, not guidance. Humanity will not be shackled for the convenience of others." A ripple of tension ran through the council. Some species whispered rapidly in alien tongues. Others shifted their forms, colors changing with emotion. Fear, confusion, even admiration mingled in ways humans could barely perceive. Xylarth tilted slightly, a motion that resembled a sigh, or perhaps a pause in its thought process. "You misunderstand us," Xylarth said, its voice now layered with sharp undertones of impatience. "This council exists to maintain balance. The galaxy is vast, chaotic. Without oversight, without structure, species destroy themselves. Our offer is not oppression, it is protection." Leora Cade, ever observant, stepped forward. Her voice was steady, cutting through the council's murmurs with precision. "Protection that comes with ultimatums is not protection at all. You speak of balance, yet your very structure enforces compliance and fear. Humans do not require your oversight to thrive. We make our own choices, accept the consequences, and endure. That is our strength." Envoy Torren Finn interjected, his tone neutral but firm. "We recognize the wisdom and experience you possess. Your achievements are extraordinary. But wisdom does not grant the right to dictate the will of another species. If balance requires the surrender of our autonomy, it is a balance we cannot accept." From the floating platforms, murmurs swelled into audible tension. Delegates exchanged glances and signals. The council was designed to enforce obedience. Dissent was rare and swiftly crushed. These humans, however, were impervious to intimidation. They were unyielding, yet they spoke with reason and logic, not aggression. Rilvax of the Zytherians leaned forward, his 6 eyes narrowing. Do you not comprehend the gravity of your decision? Compliance with the Council has preserved species, stabilized wars, prevented countless conflicts. Refusal is not merely bold, it is reckless. Eric's jaw tightened slightly, but he maintained his composure. Perhaps in your history, compliance has prevented conflict. But history is written by those in power. Humanity has survived precisely because we challenge risk. We do not bow to fear. We do not trade freedom for safety. That is what separates us from every species that has come before. Xylartha's form pulsed with light, a clear sign of agitation in a species that had rarely displayed emotion so visibly. You are foolish, it said. The galaxy is vast. Threats exist beyond your comprehension. Predators that could consume your world in hours, empires that could erase your species in days. To reject our guidance is madness. Leora tilted her head slightly, her tone calm, almost patronizing. We have faced extinction before. We have stared into annihilation and endured. That is the nature of humanity. We adapt, we survive, we overcome. Threats, predators, empires, they do not dictate our choices. They test our ingenuity. And we excel at passing every test you cannot imagine. A low hum rose in the chamber as counselors communicated in rapid, complex signals. Some species appeared agitated, others seemed fascinated. It was as though the humans had introduced a variable the council could not compute. Courage without fear, defiance without chaos, will without aggression. Xylartha's crystalline form refracted violently. You underestimate the consequences. There are forces in this galaxy beyond your comprehension. Your resolve may impress some, but it will not protect you. We must, intervene to prevent catastrophe. Eric stepped forward, voice unwavering. Intervention will not bend us. Threats will not sway us. We do not seek conflict, but we will not submit. Our autonomy is not negotiable. That is the second truth we offer today. Humanity's will cannot be bought, nor coerced, nor broken. A ripple of disbelief passed through the chamber. Counselors whispered urgently to one another. Some alien leaders, species whose lifespans spanned millennia, began to exchange gestures of admiration, subtle nods acknowledging the humans' courage. Others recoiled, their pride wounded, unable to reconcile millennia of assumed superiority with this defiance. Envoy Torin Finn moved with quiet precision, his diplomatic instincts guiding his words. You may perceive us as inexperienced or weak, he said, but we bring more than mere survival instinct. Humanity brings ingenuity, adaptability, and unity. You may shape the galaxy for eons, but you cannot shape human will. That is eternal. That is absolute. Xylartha's form flickered, shards of light scattering like sparks. You are unlike any species we have encountered, it admitted, its voice uncharacteristically fragmented. Most species bend when confronted with overwhelming authority. Most yield when their survival is threatened. You resist on principle. Why? Eric's expression softened, almost reflective. Because survival without choice is meaningless. Life without freedom is slavery. Prosperity without dignity is hollow. Humans exist to make decisions, to learn, to grow, to endure, and that cannot be dictated by anyone, not even the most ancient council in the galaxy. A hush fell over the chamber. Even the murmuring of the council's auxiliary delegates, gaseous forms that usually whispered incessantly, stilled. The Terrans had made their point. They would not negotiate, they would not yield, and they would not bow. Xylartha's voice, now slower, more measured, trembled with a rare vulnerability. Then you leave us no choice but observation. We will watch you, study you. If your resolve wavers, if your defiance falters, the consequences will be severe. Eric's hazel eyes gleamed. We welcome your observation. But do not mistake vigilance for control. Humanity is not a species to be commanded, coerced, or contained. Remember this, we are not your subjects. We are not your wards. We are humans, and we will endure on our terms. The council chamber seemed to shiver with the weight of the moment. Never had a species confronted the council with such certainty. Never had defiance been met with neither fear nor compromise. The Terrans stood as a beacon of unyielding will, their calm courage a quiet storm that rippled through the galaxy's oldest powers. In that moment, one thing became clear to every delegate present. Humanity was unlike any species they had encountered. It was clever, unrelenting, and utterly independent. The council may govern the galaxy, but the humans, small, fragile, mortal, possessed something far more dangerous than weapons or armies, an unbreakable will. And the first step of the Terran's legend had only just begun. The Galactic Council had observed countless species rise and fall. Empires had crumbled, alliances had shattered, and countless worlds had submitted to their authority. Yet none had ever stood before them as the humans did, defiant, unyielding, and unarmed. Xylarth of the Vanir, still pulsing with fractured light from the previous encounter, convened the council in a decision that would test humanity as never before. "Let us see if their resolve is as strong as their words," Xylarth declared, its crystalline facets refracting light across the chamber. "If their will is true, they will survive what others would fail." Without warning, the chamber transformed. Holographic projectors ignited, casting a three-dimensional simulation that expanded to fill every corner of the council hall. Vast alien battlefields appeared, teeming with armies beyond human comprehension. Colossal war machines, bioengineered leviathans, and fleets of starships swarmed across the digital planes. The humans were tiny, almost insignificant figures in the simulation, dwarfed by the overwhelming might of alien forces. Captain Eric Vane studied the scene with quiet intensity. The council had expected fear, trembling, hesitation. Yet he felt none. Beside him, Dr. Leora Cade's analytical mind raced, cataloging every variable, every pattern, every weakness in the simulation. Envoy Torin Finn's calm eyes moved across the alien delegates' expressions, reading subtle signs of doubt and frustration. Xylarth's voice filled the chamber again. "Terrans, if your species survives this trial, it will prove that your defiance is not mere arrogance. Fail and you will be remembered as foolish and fragile. Choose your actions carefully." Eric nodded to his team. "Leora, Torin, let's show them what humans do when cornered." The simulation was brutal. Alien war machines advanced with terrifying coordination. Plasma beams cut through forests that seemed alive with movement. Gigantic creatures with armored scales trampled entire cities. The human simulated forces were outnumbered, outgunned, and seemingly doomed. Leora's mind worked at lightning speed. "Conventional strategies won't work," she murmured. "We can't match their numbers or raw strength. But patterns always emerge. Every empire has a rhythm. Every system has a flaw." She began issuing commands to the simulated Terran forces. Not brute force but clever maneuvers. Starfighters feigned retreats to lure alien cruisers into ambushes. Infantry units exploited terrain the aliens considered useless. Engineers deployed improvised defenses in ways no alien strategist would anticipate. Eric watched, impressed yet focused. "Adapt, improvise, overcome," he whispered. "That's humanity's advantage. They see only raw numbers. We see opportunity." The holographic counselors observed closely. Xylarth's facets glinted with disbelief as the humans turned what should have been a massacre into a carefully orchestrated resistance. Alien units fell into traps that exploited predictable programming, and human ingenuity began to turn the tide in subtle ways. Not through overwhelming force but through creativity, improvisation, and unity. Rilvax of the Zytherians hissed, his 6 eyes widening in shock. "Impossible. Their forces, they survive against impossible odds. Every maneuver we predicted, countered." "How?" Torin Finn spoke quietly to Leora, his voice calm despite the tension. "We never fight them on their terms. That is our advantage. The Council assumes we will yield to numbers and firepower. They forget that humans excel in chaos and adaptation." Leora's eyes sparkled with a mixture of excitement and strategy. "Exactly. Their simulations are designed for fear. But fear doesn't guide us. Observation, calculation, and instinct do. And we have all three in abundance." The simulation escalated. Alien warships rained laser fire down on Terran positions. Bioengineered predators tore through simulated cities. Yet the humans continued to adapt. One simulated city, set ablaze by alien bombardment, was evacuated systematically. Civilians moved along hidden corridors, while the humans counterattacked from unexpected positions. Every failed strategy was a lesson. Every setback became an advantage. The Council watched in stunned silence. Species that had considered themselves the pinnacle of strategic thinking were baffled. No simulation had ever been turned against its creators so effectively. The humans were doing the unthinkable, surviving against the impossible, exploiting weaknesses that the Council itself had designed to be undetectable. Xylarth's crystalline form flickered violently. "This cannot be. Their adaptation, their ingenuity, no species." Eric stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chamber, calm but carrying undeniable authority. You see what we do not rely on raw strength. You see what you cannot anticipate: ingenuity, cooperation, and relentless will. You may control armies, fleets, even entire civilizations, but you cannot control human creativity. That is our true power. The holographic battlefield began to collapse under the pressure of human tactics. Alien forces faltered, unable to anticipate the unconventional maneuvers. In a final demonstration, Eric's team orchestrated a coordinated strike that turned the Council's simulation against itself. Massive alien warships collided due to miscalculated maneuvers, bioengineered creatures turned against their own ranks due to human-engineered traps, and the battlefield that was supposed to crush humanity now lay in ruins, but the humans stood, intact and triumphant. A stunned silence enveloped the council chamber. Delegates whispered urgently, some recoiling in disbelief, others exchanging glances of cautious admiration. Xylarth's facets refracted violently, pulsing with anger and awe. How is this possible? Torrin Finn stepped forward, voice calm yet firm. It is simple. Humans do not rely on fear or intimidation. We do not submit to overwhelming power. We observe, we adapt, we overcome. You tested us expecting obedience. We passed your trial not through violence, but through ingenuity. Dr. Leora Cade added, your simulations assume linear thinking, predictability, and compliance. We assume nothing. We calculate, improvise, and learn. That is why humanity endures where others fail. That is why our will cannot be broken. The council members could only stare, their centuries of authority shaken. No species had ever survived a test designed by the council itself, and turned it into a victory. Across the chamber, whispers spread like wildfire. The humans, they are different. Xylarth finally spoke, its voice slower now, almost reverent. Then it appears your defiance is not empty. Your resolve is formidable. This trial proves what we did not expect. Your will is beyond our control. Eric's gaze swept across the alien counselors. We are not here to dominate or overthrow. We are here to show that survival, ingenuity, and will are not gifts to be granted by others. They are earned. And they are ours. Remember this, humans are never helpless. Humans do not surrender. And humans will endure. The holographic simulation dissolved, leaving the chamber as silent as the vacuum of space outside. The council had intended to test, intimidate, and perhaps frighten the humans into compliance. Instead, they had witnessed something entirely new, a species that thrived in chaos, that defied expectation, and that demonstrated the extraordinary potential of human ingenuity. For the first time in millennia, the council was forced to reconsider everything they thought they knew about power, strategy, and the indomitable nature of a species. And in the center of the chamber, the Terrans stood, unshaken and unyielding, their eyes calm, their resolve absolute. A living testament to the truth of humanity. Survival is not a matter of strength alone, but of will, creativity, and the courage to stand against insurmountable odds. The trial was over. Humanity had not only survived, it had triumphed. And the council knew without doubt that these humans were unlike any species the galaxy had ever faced. The Galactic Council chamber had quieted since the humans had passed the trial. The holographic battlefield had vanished, leaving the alien delegates in stunned contemplation. Xylarth's crystalline facets flickered intermittently, reflecting a mixture of disbelief and cautious curiosity. Across the chamber, whispers filled the void between platforms. Species who had once considered themselves invincible were now questioning their assumptions. Captain Eric Vane remained at the center, motionless yet fully aware of the tension around him. To the council he appeared calm, almost meditative. But beneath his composed exterior, his mind was a web of strategy, analyzing every gesture, every pattern of the councilors' behavior. Humanity's advantage, he knew, was not in brute force, it was in patience. Dr. Leora Cade stood beside him, her gaze sharp, scanning the councilors with meticulous precision. They've underestimated us twice now, she whispered. First by expecting fear, then by expecting failure. They're trying to measure us through the lens of every species they've controlled. That's their flaw. Envoy Torrin Finn, usually silent, nodded. And every flaw is an opportunity. The council sees only the surface, our size, our weapons, our mortality. They cannot comprehend the breadth of human ingenuity or our ability to exploit their assumptions. Xylarth finally spoke, its crystalline facets refracting like shattered light. Terrans, you defy not only our offers but our expectations. You are clever, yes, but cleverness alone does not ensure survival. The galaxy is vast, full of dangers you cannot foresee. You must choose, submit or face isolation. Eric's voice was steady, deliberate. We have already chosen Xylarth. Humanity walks its own path. We do not seek conflict, but we do not bend to authority. Observation, patience, and understanding, these are our tools. And we are already learning from you. The council murmured again. Observation, patience, learning. Humans were silent, yet every word suggested control. Unlike the other species who relied on force or intimidation, humans did not make noise. They watched, calculated, and waited. That was their true power. Leora stepped forward, her voice cutting through the ambient hum of alien energy. Your trials have taught us much, Xylarth. But what you do not understand is that your attempts to intimidate only provide information. Every threat, every test, every motion you make is a clue to your priorities, your divisions, your weaknesses. Across the chamber, alien delegates exchanged uneasy glances. Some species began shifting, revealing minor fissures in their long-standing alliances. Humans, it seemed, could see cracks that even the council itself had ignored. Eric allowed himself a faint smile. We do not strike. We do not threaten. We do not raise weapons or demand concessions. We simply exist, fully aware, fully attentive. And in that existence, the council reveals itself. Every gesture, every word, every pause is a thread. And we are skilled in weaving those threads into understanding. Torrin Finn observed Xylarth carefully. They think compliance ensures stability. They think fear maintains control. But stability without transparency is brittle, and fear is temporary. Humans do not react to fear, we respond to patterns. And patterns tell us everything we need to know. Xylarth's light pulses slowed, as if struggling to process the human's words. You speak of patience as though it is power. Patience alone does not shield you from predators, from cosmic calamities, from empires that would consume your homeworld in a heartbeat. Eric's gaze was unwavering. Patience is not mere waiting. Patience is the space in which strategy breathes. It is the calm before action. You may possess armies, empires, and fleets, Xylarth, but humans possess foresight, adaptability, and willpower that cannot be calculated. That is why we endure. Across the chamber, counselors shifted uncomfortably. The humans' calm confidence contrasted sharply with the frantic displays of authority they were accustomed to. No other species had ever challenged the council with composure and clarity. This was not rebellion fueled by anger or fear. This was strategy in its purest form. Leora whispered to Eric, her voice barely audible. They're beginning to expose themselves. Notice the subtle shifts? Rilvax's eyes flicker when Xylarth speaks. The Zytherians are debating something among themselves. Even the Karate, they're questioning loyalties they've maintained for centuries. We're in a unique position. Eric nodded slightly, understanding the significance. We are not just surviving, we are guiding perception. The council believes it evaluates us, but in reality, we are shaping how they evaluate themselves. The Terrans remained silent for hours, observing, listening, and calculating. Every counselor movement, every subtle gesture, every change in tone became data. Xylarth's attempts at intimidation revealed priorities. Debates among other species exposed alliances and resentments. Even pauses in communication suggested undisclosed tensions. And yet, humans did not act aggressively. They did not expose their full capabilities. They allowed the council to reveal itself, to overextend, to falter under the weight of its assumptions. Every day passed without confrontation, yet with each passing moment, the humans' understanding of the council deepened. Eric finally addressed his team quietly, voice calm but resolute. They believe observation grants them control. But observation works both ways. The council's arrogance blinds them. They assume compliance is instinctive, submission is inevitable. We are neither instinctive nor submissive. They have underestimated the human mind. Leora smiled faintly. And in their underestimation lies our advantage. We can anticipate, we can counter, we can maneuver, without them ever realizing the full scope until it is too late. Torrin added, this is the first step toward true influence. We do not need to dominate them. We only need to remain human. Their reactions reveal more than their words ever could. The council remained unaware of the full scope of the human silent strategy. They saw composure as confidence, patience as passivity, and observation as vulnerability. In truth, every moment of apparent stillness was a calculated maneuver in a game they did not know they were playing. Days turned into weeks. The council, frustrated by the humans' lack of compliance or aggression, began to make missteps. Offers of alliance were poorly timed, threats were subtly contradictory, and factions among species became visible. The Terrans catalogued everything, each revelation a potential lever for future negotiation or deterrence. Finally, Eric turned to his team with quiet satisfaction. We have planted seeds without disturbance. The Council believes itself in control, but they are revealing their structure, their weaknesses, their divisions. We do not need to act yet. Our strategy is working. The galaxy may be vast, Xylarth may be powerful, but humans understand the long game. Leora nodded. And patience is the ultimate weapon. Observation is the ultimate shield. We've won without a single shot fired, without a single command obeyed. That is humanity's true strength, silent strategy in the midst of chaos. The Galactic Council, ancient and supreme, remained unaware. To them, the humans had survived their trial and refused compromise. Yet in that very refusal, humans had gained insight, power, and leverage that no counselor could quantify. And so, as the chamber hummed with alien energy, the Terrans stood quietly, watching, listening, learning. In the calm of their strategy, the seeds of a future victory were already taking root. A victory that would not rely on conquest, nor on intimidation, but on the clarity, patience, and brilliance of the human mind. The silent strategy had begun. The Council may have believed they controlled the narrative, but in reality humanity had already turned the galaxy's oldest power structure into a field of observation, calculation, and subtle influence. And somewhere, deep in the heart of the chamber, Xylarth's fractured light flickered uncertainly, signaling the first cracks in the Council's centuries-old certainty. The Galactic Council, once a bastion of unwavering authority, was beginning to fracture, not from open rebellion but from a subtle, invisible pressure. The humans had not raised weapons. They had not demanded territory, resources, or allegiance. Yet in their silence, in their patient observation, they had already begun to reshape the Council's perception of power. Captain Eric Vane stood at the center of the chamber, observing the shifting dynamics. Xylarth's crystalline facets refracted in irregular patterns, a visible sign of agitation. Other counselors whispered, gestured, and debated more openly than ever before. The Terrans had not provoked them. They had merely stood firm, unwavering, and in doing so, had revealed the cracks in centuries-old alliances. Dr. Leora Cade leaned close to Eric, her eyes flicking across the chamber. They're revealing themselves without realizing it. Their divisions, their hidden agendas, it's all laid bare. Every species fears the others, every faction protects secrets, every alliance is brittle. We've created the perfect moment. Eric nodded. And we wait. Patience remains our greatest weapon. Let them undermine each other while we maintain clarity. Xylarth's voice echoed through the chamber. Terrans, your persistence is remarkable. But perseverance alone will not secure your safety. This council governs the galaxy, and every species within it knows the consequences of defiance. Envoy Torrin Finn stepped forward, calm and deliberate. We are not concerned with fear, Xylarth. Fear can be wielded, yes, but it cannot compel thought, ingenuity, or resilience. You test us with threats because you assume weakness, but humans do not operate on assumption. We operate on knowledge, observation, and action when necessary. Across the chamber, murmurs rose. Delegates that had once been silent spectators began to speak openly, questioning the Council's decisions and priorities. The humans' quiet defiance had given them courage, or perhaps permission, to challenge centuries of authority. Even minor disputes among Council factions surfaced, their subtleties invisible to anyone but the careful observers standing at the center. Leora whispered to Eric, voice low and controlled. Notice Rilvax of the Zytherians? He's already signaling caution to the Karate. The Karate are resisting something. They're unsure where loyalty lies. We've stirred doubt without a single word. Eric's gaze swept across the chamber. The Council's power lies in cohesion. Fragment the cohesion and authority falters. Let the cracks widen, quietly, subtly. Observe, wait, then act. The turning point came not with conflict, but with clarity. A faction of the Council, led by Celera of the Vexyri, a luminous being whose form shimmered with iridescent light, approached Xylarth privately. Their discussion, visible only through subtle gestures and energy fluctuations, revealed mistrust. Xylarth's position as the Council's unchallenged leader was no longer absolute. A sense of vulnerability had crept into the highest levels of power, exposed entirely by the humans' refusal to yield. Eric leaned slightly toward Leora. This is the moment. They believe observation grants them insight, but they cannot comprehend our understanding of them. Their insecurity is now their weakness. Leora's mind raced through possibilities. We strike not with weapons but with influence. Words, questions, subtle guidance, anything to exploit their doubt without provoking open hostility. They're susceptible because they've never faced a species that refuses to play by their rules. Torrin Finn nodded. Influence is the key. The Council believes itself invulnerable, yet it underestimates the power of perception. By remaining steadfast, by simply existing with clarity and intelligence, humans have already begun to shift their balance. In a carefully orchestrated session, Eric addressed the Council directly. His tone was neutral, almost respectful, yet every word was deliberate, calculated to expose inconsistency and division. Counselors, you speak of unity and order, yet your deliberations reveal fear and hesitation. You propose solutions without full consensus. You project strength, yet even now your alliances are fragile. We do not seek to undermine you, but observation reveals your true state. And this state, this vulnerability, is apparent to all who watch closely. A ripple of tension spread across the chamber. Xylarth's facets pulsed violently, while delegates whispered in alarm. Celera of the Vexiri's light shimmered unevenly, a subtle sign of internal conflict. Even the karate shifted, uncertain in posture. The humans had not attacked. They had not threatened. And yet, the balance of power was quietly tilting. Leora stepped forward, voice calm but authoritative. We have no desire for domination. But understand this, humanity thrives not through coercion, but through clarity, creativity, and cooperation. Your attempts at control are visible to all who observe. In transparency lies your vulnerability. And now that vulnerability is clear. The Council's murmurings escalated into debates, some furious, some hesitant. Ancient protocols and centuries-old rules clashed with the unsettling reality of a species that refused authority. The human's presence alone had shifted priorities, exposed hidden agendas, and forced counselors to reconsider alliances. Eric spoke once more, carefully choosing each word. We offer no threat beyond our own existence. But you will find that persistence, intelligence, and the refusal to surrender command respect in ways force never could. Your authority is measured not by compliance but by understanding. And now you are being understood, fully, without assumption, without fear, without compromise. Xylarth's facets fractured, reflecting bursts of light that danced across the chamber like a warning signal. You, humans, your words wound even without aggression. You expose flaws we have long hidden. Eric inclined his head slightly, acknowledging the statement without arrogance. That is the effect of clarity, Xylarth. It is not aggression. It is presence, observation, and understanding. And it is a power you cannot wield against us, no matter the fleets you command or the influence you hold. The Council reeled. Factions argued openly, alliances wavered, and old grudges surfaced, all under the silent pressure exerted by three unarmed humans. Where the Council had once assumed dominance, uncertainty now spread like a subtle virus, invisible yet undeniable. Leora's eyes shone with satisfaction. The turning point is subtle yet complete. The Council believes itself unchanged, yet it has been reshaped by our presence alone. They underestimate us, and that will be their undoing. Torrin Finn added, the galaxy will remember this moment, not for conflict or conquest, but for the quiet demonstration of human resolve. By refusing to act in haste, by refusing to yield to intimidation, we have shifted the balance of power without a single shot fired. Eric gazed across the chamber one final time, voice low, deliberate, carrying the weight of certainty. We do not dominate. We do not conquer. We do not threaten. But understand this, humanity endures, adapts, and influences in ways you cannot predict. The turning point is here. The Council is no longer as it was. And humanity's legend has begun. The chamber was silent in the aftermath, yet it vibrated with a new energy. The Council had been tested, not by force but by will. Not by threats but by patience. And in that silence, the humans had emerged not only unscathed, but in command of perception, subtly shifting the galaxy's oldest power structure in their favor. And somewhere, in the fractured light of Xylarth's crystalline facets, the first seeds of doubt began to grow, a recognition that humanity was unlike any species the galaxy had ever faced, and that the true power of humans lay not in fleets or weapons, but in mind, strategy, and unbreakable will. The Galactic Council chamber, once a monument to unity and unchallenged authority, now vibrated with uncertainty. The humans had done nothing overtly aggressive, yet their presence had reshaped the Council from within. Whispers, murmurs, and subtle exchanges that once went unnoticed had become declarations in disguise. Even the stalwart Xylarth of the Vanir pulsed with fragmented light, a visible testament to internal conflict. Captain Eric Vane observed quietly from the center of the chamber. His expression was calm, almost serene, but his mind was fully attuned to every nuance. Every alien gesture, every subtle shift in posture or tone, revealed divisions, doubts, and weaknesses. Humanity had survived trials, manipulated perception, and now the council was beginning to crumble, not through force but through clarity and presence. Dr. Leora Cade leaned slightly toward him, her gaze sweeping the assembly. They're unraveling faster than we anticipated. The Vexyri are openly debating leadership decisions now. Even the Zytherians are questioning their loyalty to Xylarth. They underestimate us at every turn, and it's working in our favor. Envoy Torin Finn added, they assume compliance equals submission, that hesitation signals weakness. They fail to see that human patience is not indecision, it is strategy. And strategy is lethal in its own right. Across the chamber, Xylarth's crystalline facets fractured and shimmered in irregular patterns, as if struggling to maintain authority. Terrans, it began, voice layered with uncharacteristic uncertainty, your defiance continues unabated. You have survived every trial, exposed every flaw, and yet you make no demands, raise no fleets, offer no ultimatums. How do you persist so calmly? Eric's hazel eyes met Xylarth's fractured form. Calmness is not weakness, Xylarth. It is clarity. Humanity thrives in observation, calculation, and patience. We act when necessary, but until then our presence alone is sufficient. You may control armies, fleets, and empires, but you cannot control human will. The chamber erupted, not in sound but in subtle chaos. Delegates whispered urgently to one another, some exchanging signals of dissent, others questioning allegiances that had lasted for centuries. The council, once a cohesive body of ancient authority, now appeared fragile, fractured by invisible pressure. Leora stepped forward, voice deliberate, resonating in the chamber without aggression. Counselors, understand this. Humanity does not seek conflict, domination, or conquest. Yet by refusing to bow, by observing and learning, we have revealed truths you may not wish to face. Your unity is imperfect. Your alliances are conditional. Your authority is assumed, not absolute. And now it is your choice how you respond. The murmurs grew louder. Even minor factions, previously obedient or silent, began to assert themselves. Celera of the Vexyri floated slightly closer to Xylarth, her light flickering with uncertainty. Perhaps, we have relied too heavily on structure and tradition. Perhaps, we have allowed complacency to guide us. Rilvax of the Zytherians hissed, his 6 eyes darting toward the humans. They've done nothing but stand and speak, and yet they've toppled centuries of perceived authority. How? Torin Finn's calm voice carried across the chamber. Because humans measure power differently. Where you see strength in fleets, in orders, in domination, we see power in understanding, patience, and resolve. By observing without fear, by refusing to submit, we have exposed weaknesses no weapon could reveal. The turning point became undeniable. Factions within the council began forming independently of Xylarth's guidance. Subtle alliances shifted, old grudges resurfaced, and trust fractured. Species that had once relied on Xylarth's authority now questioned it openly. Humanity's presence, silent, resolute, unyielding, had created a ripple that no council procedure could contain. Leora whispered to Eric, her tone tight with excitement. Notice the karate. They're communicating in secret now, testing loyalties without overt action. The Zytherians are hesitant to commit. The council structure is no longer a monolith. It's brittle. Eric's gaze swept across the chamber. We do not need to destroy them. We do not need to fight. Our influence comes from clarity, patience, and presence. They underestimate us because they cannot calculate the human mind. That is our greatest weapon. Xylarth's facets flared, projecting shards of light that scattered across the chamber like sparks of alarm. Terrans, you persist in defiance, yet offer no explanation, no strategy, no claim. How do you survive when the galaxy itself is a threat? Eric's voice was measured, unwavering. We survive not by the absence of threat, but by the presence of will. By observing, understanding, and acting only when necessary. Humanity thrives in conditions others fear. That is why we endure and why you cannot dominate us. Across the chamber, subtle chaos grew into visible tension. Even Xylarth's closest allies began questioning decisions, debating priorities, and considering options that had never been considered before. The council had expected defiance to be a minor disturbance. Instead, it had become a catalyst for self-examination and division. Leora turned slightly to Eric, whispering, "They're losing control. Not because we attacked, but because our existence exposes their flaws. Every hesitation, every doubt, every secret agenda is now visible." Eric nodded. "We have not interfered, yet we have influenced. That is the power of human resolve. They cannot predict it, they cannot contain it, and they cannot control it. Their collapse is not our goal, it is the consequence of their underestimation." Hours passed, and the chamber remained in a tense equilibrium. The council struggled to regain cohesion, but the subtle influence of the humans was undeniable. Delegates questioned, alliances shifted, and the very structure of authority seemed fragile. Humanity's silent strategy had reached its apex. The council was no longer unified, and its influence over its own members was waning. Torrin Finn observed quietly, his calm voice breaking the silence. The council's power was never absolute. It relied on the assumption of compliance. When a species refuses compliance without fear, without aggression, that assumption is shattered. The galaxy sees this. They see humans as neither conquerors nor subjects, but as equals, unbowed and undeterred. Leora's eyes gleamed. "We've done more than survive trials. We've demonstrated that influence does not require fleets, armies, or intimidation. It requires clarity, intelligence, and patience. We've planted the seeds of change, and they are already growing." Eric finally addressed the chamber, his voice resonant and unwavering. "Counselors, humanity does not seek dominion. We do not seek to rule or to coerce. But understand this, we will endure. We will adapt. And in observing your council we have learned much, not to exploit but to prepare. Your structure is no longer absolute. Your alliances are no longer secure. And your authority is no longer unchallenged." A heavy silence followed. Xylarth's facets flickered slowly, each pulse reflecting uncertainty. Factions debated openly. Some species, emboldened by the humans' calm defiance, began to assert independence. The council had survived for millennia through fear and authority, but now the unarmed, composed humans had shown that the most formidable force in the galaxy was not power alone, it was will. Eric turned to his team quietly. "The aftermath is clear. The council is destabilized not by weapons, not by threat, but by the simple act of standing firm. Our influence is solidifying. The galaxy has begun to notice, and humanity's role is secure. We prepare for what comes next, calm, observant, and unyielding." Leora smiled faintly. "The seeds have been sown. The council's collapse is subtle but inevitable. And we did it without striking a single blow. That is humanity's true strength." Torrin added, "The galaxy will remember this. Not as a war, not as a conquest, but as a demonstration of the power of resolve, patience, and intelligence. Humanity stands unbowed, and the council has no choice but to recognize it." The chamber, once a symbol of unassailable authority, was now a landscape of fragile alliances, secret debates, and unspoken tension. The humans had endured, observed, and influenced without aggression. In the quiet aftermath, one truth became undeniable. The council was no longer as it had been, and humanity's legend had solidified in the hearts and minds of all who had witnessed it. And as the Terrans departed from the chamber, unhurried, unarmed, and unbowed, the galaxy itself seemed to shift subtly in acknowledgement. Humanity's influence, silent yet absolute, had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. The Galactic Council chamber, once a monument to unity and unquestioned authority, now quivered with uncertainty. The humans had done nothing overtly aggressive. No fleets had deployed, no weapons had fired, no ultimatums had been demanded. And yet, the council was fractured. Alliances wavered. Trust had eroded. Doubt had replaced certainty. Humanity had achieved what no species in galactic history had ever done. They had shifted the balance of power without striking a single blow. Captain Eric Vane stood at the center of the chamber, his presence calm yet commanding. The crystalline facets of Xylarth pulsed erratically, reflecting flashes of alien light and shadow, as if the ancient counselor itself could not comprehend what had occurred. Across the chamber, other delegates whispered, gestured, and debated in hurried, fragmented tones. Dr. Leora Cade leaned toward Eric, her eyes sharp and reflective. "Look at them. They think they still control the narrative, but it's gone. They don't even realize it yet. Every alliance is uncertain, every loyalty questioned, every position of authority weakened. Envoy Torrin Finn observed silently, voice calm but resonant. We've done more than survive trials, more than outmaneuver expectations. We've altered perception itself. Their chaos is a testament to human will, subtle, patient, unstoppable. Xylartha's voice fractured through the chamber, trembling with a mixture of disbelief and lingering authority. Terrans, you persist, yet you do nothing, yet you claim victory. How can your species achieve so much without aggression? How do you leave us so exposed? Eric's hazel eyes met Xylartha's fragmented light, steady and unwavering. Because our strength does not come from fleets, from weapons, or from dominion. It comes from clarity, observation, and the refusal to submit. We act when necessary, but even in stillness, our presence reshapes the galaxy. You see it now. Your unity is gone. Your authority is fractured. And yet we have done nothing more than remain human. The chamber stirred with murmurs, whispers that grew louder, urgent debates erupting across floating platforms. Delegates who had once deferred unquestioningly to Xylarth now openly questioned decisions. Secret factions communicated in covert signals, alliances shifted without announcement, and the council's cohesion began to crumble under its own weight. Dr. Leora Cade spoke, her voice calm and deliberate, yet resonating across the chamber. Counselors, understand this. Humanity does not seek conflict. We do not demand submission. We do not claim dominion. And yet, by standing firm, by observing, and by refusing to be intimidated, we have revealed truths that cannot be ignored. You are no longer as unified as you once believed. You are vulnerable, not because we strike but because we exist and you underestimated us. Celera of the Vexyrai, a luminous being whose iridescent form flickered nervously, exchanged a glance with Xylarth. Even she, a species known for calculated diplomacy, could not deny the profound shift in perception. Perhaps, we have relied too much on fear and tradition. Perhaps, we allowed certainty to blind us to reality. Rilvax of the Zytherians hissed quietly to his companions. They've done nothing, and yet, they've undone everything we thought we knew. Torrin Finn's calm tone carried across the chamber. They underestimate us because they cannot calculate human will. They cannot predict the resilience of patience, the power of observation, or the strength of unity without aggression. That is why we endure, and that is why we influence even as we refrain from action. For hours, the humans remained silent, standing amidst the fractured council. They made no demands, they gave no orders, they neither threatened nor intimidated. And yet every gesture, every calm posture, every subtle acknowledgement of the council's internal discord reinforced a single undeniable truth: humanity could not be controlled. Finally, Eric turned to his team, voice low but resolute. We've done what few species could dream of. We've shifted the balance without violence. The council's chaos is the fruit of their own assumptions. They believed compliance was instinctive. They believed fear could dictate action. And now, they realize neither is true. Leora smiled faintly. It's almost beautiful, isn't it? The entire chamber, the galaxy's oldest authority, unraveling without a single weapon fired. The human mind is the only armament they cannot anticipate. Torrin added, and the galaxy is watching. Every species that observes will understand what has happened here. Not through conquest, but through resolve, clarity, and patience. Humans have shown that strength is not measured by force. It is measured by will. Xylartha's fractured light dimmed, each pulse slower, uncertain. You leave us in disarray, yet offer no claim, no threat, no declaration of war. How can this be your victory? Eric's gaze was calm, resolute. Because we need no conquest to prevail. Influence, understanding, and unyielding will our victories greater than fleets, weapons, or empires. We leave not because we fear but because our purpose is complete. Observe, learn, endure, and in doing so, leave a mark that cannot be undone. The council's chamber fell into a tense silence. Delegates whispered, debated, and gestured frantically, yet none could act decisively. Factions questioned loyalties, alliances shifted unpredictably, and centuries of rigid authority crumbled quietly under the invisible pressure exerted by three unarmed humans. Eric turned slowly, signaling to Leora and Torrin. Their movements were deliberate, silent, calm. Together they walked toward the exit of the chamber. Their pace was unhurried, as if the collapse around them were a natural rhythm to which they were merely attuned. Dr. Leora Cade's voice, almost a whisper to the surrounding chamber, carried one final truth. Remember this, counselors. A species that cannot be controlled, a species that refuses intimidation, a species that thrives in adversity, is a species that endures. Humanity is such a species. We leave now, but our presence will linger long after we are gone. The humans reached the docking platform of the Aurelius. Their movements were deliberate, controlled, calm. They boarded the ship without ceremony, without fanfare. No alarm sounded. No counselors attempted to stop them. And yet the chamber trembled with the quiet chaos they left behind, a council destabilized not by weapons but by resolve. As the Aurelius lifted from the platform, thrusters silent and sleek against the backdrop of the council's grand chamber, Eric spoke one final time. We have endured. We have influenced. We have shifted perception without striking a blow. That is the true strength of humanity. And the galaxy has seen it. Leora and Torin nodded, eyes fixed on the vast expanse of space beyond the chamber. The galaxy will remember this day, Leora said softly. Not for war, not for conquest, but for the quiet demonstration of human will. That is our legacy. Torin added, voice calm but imbued with certainty. We do not conquer. We do not dominate. But we endure. We adapt. And in our endurance, we leave an indelible mark. The Council, the galaxy, and every species watching now know that humans are neither to be underestimated nor controlled. The Aurelius slipped silently into the void, leaving the Council behind in their fractured authority. For the first time in millennia, the Galactic Council was not feared. It was unsettled, uncertain, and profoundly aware that a species small by comparison had done what no fleet, no army, no empire had achieved. Humans had imposed influence without violence, altered perception without force, and left a legacy of unyielding will. And as the stars stretched endlessly beyond the Aurelius, the humans walked away in silence, leaving a galaxy forever changed by their quiet strength, patient strategy, and indomitable spirit. Humanity's story had only just begun, and the legend of their will, the ultimate HFY triumph, was now etched into the very fabric of the cosmos.